Okay, so what in the actual fuck is 9.2.0? I mean, what? I have literally no words for it. Who in their right mind sat behind the behavior interactive desk and thought to themselves, yeah, we should bring this out. We should do this. Don't get me wrong. There are some good things to it. For example, I'm personally I'm more of a killer main, but I still like the slugging update. It makes it a lot more interesting. You can't just kill everybody and just like um, you know, a lot of slug builds are not or have a lot of difficulties now because you can't just put everybody on the ground and hope that they don't have unbreakable. They actually have a chance now, which I think that's really great, right? It's a great idea to make a mechanic that's been there for um, like a long game or a long time inside the game really interesting, right? And it makes it so the killer has to pay more attention to it. I like that. Don't get me wrong. I'm gonna skip over the next point, which is tunneling, because I want to save that for the end. The loser status effect, I think that's great, right? It's great to give them something that killers have had for a while. Like for example, it's something like a kind of undetectable thing. It evens out the playing field. I think it's a great thing. I think it's fair. It's something that, especially for me, also has changes up my playstyle because now I know that they have those effects, and I might need to check twice at certain things. Um, Now this is the other thing I like next to the slugging update, which is the Myers update. It has its fair points, but it's also like, huh? The thing is, since 2016, Myers has always been the exact same kind of guy. It's always been get to tier 3 and you can insta kill and you can break pallets faster and you're a bit faster, you can launch further. There's not really, it's mostly just a more OP M1 killer with an undetectable phase at the start. So there's not a lot of kind of um, difference between just simply playing a killer as M1 and playing Myers. This actually changes a bit. What I don't like is that it's just a pig. I mean, it seems a lot like a pig. There's the two modes that you have, shifting and not shifting. Um, Obviously, yeah, okay, I get it. Once it's charged enough, you can use the thing, right? I get it that you need to stalk people for that, but it's just kind of. I mean, you just made a second pick that just seems like the same thing. Like it's just one of those killers that are just there to lunge. You know, before obviously one of the great things from tier 3 Myers that you could lunge for. That's really great. There was a lot of fun builds that you could do with that. Um, Especially with coup de grace or whatever, right? That was really funny. But this just seems like another pig. This is this is the exact same. This is the exact same thing. This is an M1 killer that has been reworked to be the pig. Of course, he can't sneak, of course, yeah, and he doesn't have undetectable. But uh, the point is, it's a pig. Like I'm sorry to mention this so many times, but it's literally just a pig. It's nothing else. It's just a pig. There's nothing to it. There's nothing. If, okay, well now that I'm reading it, there's one more thing that differentiates it, which is that it can destroy pallets, but that just feels like a Billy addition to it. I know that comparing them to other killers is not really the greatest thing, but I mean this is really like because it's the same thing, right? You charge it and then you can lunge where you charge, right? It's a really far lunge. This is really, really close to just the pig, which in certain killers, I wouldn't mind that if it were a different case. For example, with FNAF and Huntress, right? Huntress had a different thing because FNAF, he has one hatchet, right? You get broken, you get the status effect, right? And especially what makes it so different from just simply a Huntress is the throwing mechanics. When you throw an axe with from the FNAF character from Springtrap, it's completely different than when you throw it with Huntress. So there's like you gotta think differently, right? It's not the same thing as if you were to play Huntress. But this is literally just the exact same thing. I mean, you just charge it and you go. And in the patch note, it does say reworked his add-ons. But that just, I mean, I hope that there's something good for it, because mostly it was just, hey, you have more, you know, more tier 3, which, hopefully now it isn't the case. So I think in some, in some cases or in some ideas, this is a good idea, but it's just, the creativity kind of fell out of mine. It was like this feels like somebody put that up into the to-do list, and then somebody just went, okay, we just gotta get it off there. It's been there for like the past 2 years. Let's get it out there. Let's do something, just so it's off the list, but not something that's like, impactful. That's at least my personal opinion on it. Now the clown, actually, even though it only has a minor update, is pretty interesting, because there's been a lot of videos about the speedy clown because it's buffed so much. Now he's been nerfed slightly, with the activation time of the afterpiece antidote being increased, and also how long the hindered effect lingers after leaving smoke. I think that's a great addition to make it not so. I mean, the speedy clown was never. It was more like a fun thing. It's not like it breaks the Dead by Daylight circle of killers. Like, you're not gonna see a clown every single time just because he's, I don't know, he's the fastest killer you'll ever see. But it just, I think it made clown mains happy, and it made it a bit more difficult to go against the clown if you were, regular survivor main. For the unknown, it's a completely normal update. I think that's great. Just keeping him relevant next to other killers. Same goes for the Dark Lord, right? Where it's just making them making them relevant again, and the Ghoul, obviously. Same as for the Oni, trying to differentiate for the slugging update. Obviously, a couple perk updates. This is all not the most, like, this is not the worst thing. Now, let's get to the biggest, in my opinion, blunder they've ever done. Before we go over, even more, I'd like to say that tunneling has been a problem within Dead by Daylight for all time. Like, there's never been a time where tunneling hasn't happened. The problem with tunneling is, obviously, you can get a kill as a killer. You can get a kill as a killer, but you take away the fun from the survivors, which obviously Behavior Interactive is trying to, combat. Which makes sense. Even in my opinion, it makes sense to kind of combat that, and to kind of make sure that doesn't happen. Which I really do respect that. That's a really great idea. And to update and to at least put some thought into that, and to show the community, hey guys, we're listening to you. We're not just leaving that in the ditch, and we're not just leaving tunnel problems anywhere else. That's great, right? I'm not saying that's a bad idea to try and take care of a problem. But this feels wrong in so many ways. I mean, it's unexplainably wrong in my opinion. Excuse me. Let's go over everything. When a survivor is hooked, their hook status is hidden from the killer. When they're unhooked, there is no notification, and their hook status isn't revealed immediately. I understand that. I respect that, but I feel like as a normal killer, you just kind of know. Even if you completely remove the HUD, I know that the Dwight that I just hooked has 2 stages or 1 stage. I feel like that's not a big of a, not that big of a impact on tunneling or on anything else. I think that mostly impacts, players who haven't had a lot of experience, or who are not that, experienced in killer in general, and who take, HUD and stuff like that as a helping tool, which I respect. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but I'm saying that if you're a really experienced killer, you could live without it really easily. This is disabled once all generators are completed. That's all fine. Great, right? Now we're starting to get into the real apple pie. Unhooked survivors gain the following effects for a limited time: haste, endurance, and elusive. Status effects: no collision with other players, both killer and survivor, immunity to killer instinct, and sees the killer's aura nearby. These effects are lost when the affected survivor performs a conspicuous action. All these effects, except haste and endurance, are disabled once all generators are completed. Alright, so there is so much wrong with this. I mean, haste, endurance, that was all the time. That was great, right? The fact that there's no collision with players nor killers, I don't even wanna think about the body blocking that's gonna be happening. The whole technique of how to make sure that somebody doesn't die um, at this point is to literally just let them walk through you. Have the guy walk through you and then walk behind them. Before it was a lot harder, right? Because you had to walk around them or whatever, or you know you could you couldn't walk through the killer, so you could body block you and wait until you have those 10 seconds left. Now you don't. You can walk through the killer. Furthermore, immunity to killer instinct. Dear friend, you can literally every single killer that uses killer instinct, like a legion or whatever, or like a ghost face, that doesn't do top of my head, or anything that gives you killer instinct from a perk or whatever, they're just gone. You can just say, fuck that shit. And assuming that the same amount of that those immunity to killer instinct and the aura are the same, time as for the haste and endurance, we could assume that it's 10 seconds. 10 seconds of immunity to killer instinct. I like the idea of giving immunity to killer instinct, but make it a perk. Don't do that. For the love of God. And I don't even want to know. This combined with things like with anti-tunnel things like off the record or whatever, that is holy shit. That is, I mean, that is a base kit kindred, if you will. That is straight up, right there. That is a base kit kindred when you get unhooked. Now, don't get me wrong, I might understand this the wrong way, because it also says sees the killer's aura nearby. It could also mean if the killer is nearby. That would be balanced. That would be okay. But the immunity to killer instinct is a bit too far for me, because then killers that have that rely on things like killer instinct, like Legion, for example, they're screwed. They're fucked. They don't know. There's a whole mechanic against Legion, or like against killers like that. Added a unique effect to the killer hook state UI that indicates the last survivor they hooked. Great, right? Always, more information is okay, I guess. This next change right here is what annoys me as a person so much. So it says right here, after completing a unique hook, which means the same survivor is not hooked consecutively, killers get the following benefits: bonus damage for the next generator kick, temporary haste status effect, temporarily revealed survival, which is supposed to be like base kit barbecue and chili, that have less or equal hook states to the hooked survivor. So for example, if I hook a guy that has one hook state, right, I can see people with one hook state, but not the people with zero hook states. These effects are slightly lessened for the Blight, the Dark Lord, the Ghoul, the Hillbilly, and the Nurse. I'll get to those later. These effects are disabled once all generators are completed. And also furthermore, added new effects that disincentivize tunneling. If a survivor dies before 6 total hook states, all remaining survivors gain a repair speed for the rest of the trial. If the survivor that was last hooked or sacrificed, sacrificed or killed, generators cannot be regressed or blocked. And also added the option to enable this in custom games, and updated several survivor and killer perks to account for these new changes. Okay, so in esports tournaments of Dead by Daylight, right? In normal esports tournaments, there is the rule or the rule set or whatever is built in such a way so that you should prefer to hook somebody as first, right? It gives you more points to hook somebody that hasn't been hooked before, right? To not tunnel somebody, obviously. And so further on, right? It gives you certain points to give somebody second hook states, and it all of that, furthermore and whatnot else. They literally added this to the base game. I mean, okay, so let's go over it partly. Bonus damage for the next generator kick. I understand that. It's like a kind of it's like a Pop Goes the Weasel base kit. I think it's a good idea. However, not every killer, and this is what I'll be mentioning a lot, not every killer works in such ways, you know. And if you have a build like Ruin or like a, you know, like a Grim Embrace, especially Grim Embrace or stuff like Pain Res, it's not gonna help, man. It's like you rarely ever kick gens. If you don't have a gen kicking build, this is mostly useless. And keep in mind that in order to account these tunneling things that survivors get when tunnel them, um, you're supposed to be encouraged to not do that, right? And that's what these things are supposed to create. They're supposed to encourage you to not do that and to try to get a unique hook, as it states. Bonus damage for the next general kick is the first problem, because sure, there's some killers who do that, but there's a lot of killers who don't. They're just constantly pressuring, and they have things like Surge, like Pain Res, um, like Eruption, right? Where you just, or with Eruption, I guess. But there's a lot of things where a lot of times we just don't have to do that. You don't have to you don't have to kick a gen, you don't have to do anything really, right? And now to combat for these, rather OP things that the survivors got there, one of the buffs that you have, depending on what killer you have and depending on what build you have, it's just useless. It's completely doo-doo. It's, straight out of the window. Second thing, temporary haste status effect. I get the idea is great in that point, right? I get that should be the point, but it's once again, this is so killer specific. Not every killer can benefit from a haste status effect. Some killers will do it a lot better than others. And some killers can use, these haste effects a lot better than others. So, I mean, you can literally, I'm just realizing this, you can make a build around unique hooking and just getting, like, the best points of them. You can make a Grim Embrace, kind of, what else? Grim Embrace, like the one from Ghostface, where if you hook somebody, you get you get haste, right? Thing, and so on. It's just, I mean, some killers will benefit from it, some won't. Like for example with Nurse, when you're Nurse, you're gonna do TPing anyway. What are you gonna do with the temporary haste status effect? That's not gonna help you in any way. It's completely pointless. It's completely useless and pointless. And it's just it really I like the idea of you hooked somebody uniquely, now you should be rewarded, and so now you can get to the next survivor quicker, or you can get a chase quicker or whatever. But I feel like it's just gonna be like 3% haste for like 10 seconds, which in the bigger picture, after you hook somebody, is not really gonna make a lot of difference, right? The difference is gonna be when you change your direction, when you change where you wanna actually walk with your killer, if you wanna vault that window or whatever. But I feel like those 10% or whatever that you have are not really gonna help you. They're not they're not gonna make that big difference. I just have that feeling. Although it only says temporary haste set effect, it might be for like 20 seconds and like 15%. That'd be crazy, but I just really don't see it working on most killers in such a way that it was intended to, I suppose. Next point. Temporarily revealed survivors. I think basically BBQ and Chili that have less or equal hook states to the hook survivor. Okay, I get that. I understand that. It's supposed to, it's supposed to show you, hey, there's a guy here who has, either equal hook states or, hold on, that's not one. Wait, hold on, that makes no sense. I just realized that it sensitizes more tunneling. Because if you see, voice trick. If you, for example, if you hook a Dwight who has one hook state, and then you see a Nancy who has two hook states, aren't you then motivated to go towards the Nancy because you saw where she is, and now you're hooking somebody that has already been hooked? I mean, okay, I got that. I think the point here is not really trying to make sure that you hit the guy who's always been hooked. But I think to just go for another guy, to not just, focus on one guy. I think that was the point here. I think that just did not work at all. I mean, as I just stated, if I have a Dwight who has one hook state, I hook him. Now he has two. I can now see the Nancy. I'm gonna be, and there's a bill or whatever who has 0 hook states, I'm gonna be more motivated to get the Nancy because she has uh, equal hook states now. It just, for me, it just makes like no sense. So now I'm gonna be more incentivized to go towards the people who already have, those hook states. Or maybe I'm just interpreting wrong. I just, I feel like that just kind of, it goes in the opposite way. Like it's not really supposed, like you're trying to combat tunnel, not make it more, make it a, more rewarding experience. These effects are slightly lessened for the Blight, the Dark Lord, the Ghoul, and the Hillbilly Nurse. Oddstarver actually already mentioned it in his video. The Nurse or etc. They need to get a buff from that, or need to get something to combat that. Because I understand that some things, because those are really like movement incentivized killers, but in some way they also need to be able to keep up, because they need to get some kind of buff or some kind of way that they can combat that. Because then those are just gonna fall off in a tier list, like a tier or whatever, or like a half a, or like getting close to falling off a tier, which is like that's not what you're trying to do as a game. You're not trying to make your killers worse in general. You're trying to make them more fun. I get that. Furthermore, added new effects to disincentivize tunneling. If a survivor dies before 6 total hook states, all remaining survivors gain a repair speed bonus for the rest of the trial. If the survivor that was last hooked is sacrificed or killed, generators cannot be regressed or blocked. Same thing goes for here. It's supposed to encourage uniqueness and going for other people, right? But I feel like it will just be, at this point, it will just be juggling. Like, just killer juggling about how many hooks does this guy have, how many hooks does this guy have. So that once you're on the 7th hook, the guy who's on the 7th hook instantly dies. Like, I feel like it's at that point, you're just trying to juggle around how many hooks who has and what you can do. And then, furthermore, I wanna point this out now. If, give me this situation, okay? The Blight, the Dwight, the Nancy, and the Bill have been hooked already. The Dwight and the Nancy have both 2 hook stages, so now we have, obviously 4 hook stages, and the Bill now as well. Now, given the situation, I have now 6 hook states, right? And now, if I kill somebody on the 7th, or if I wanna, if I wanna get this game done, if I wanna make sure that everybody gets out on 2nd hook, I'm now incented. I'm now motivated to get either of those 3 people. Now I get that that doesn't mean directly tunneling, right? Because I'm choosing 3 people and not 1. But in certain cases, I feel like this is just gonna make sure that. Or you can also put this another way. What if the Nancy had 2, the Dwight had 1, and I don't know, whatever the other survivor, whatever, had also 1. We'd still have 6 in hook stages. But now, the Dwight, the Nancy, and the Bill have 1, for example, and the other guy has 3, 2, I mean. Am I now not more motivated to try and get the guy who has 2 hook stages so that he's instantly dead, so that they don't get the bonus from the 6 what's it called? So that they don't get the bonus from the 6 total hook states, and so that I can get the first kill as fast as possible, so that I don't have much of a kind of survivability, I suppose. So this once again, in another way, just does the exact same thing. It just once again motivates me to tunnel a certain person. Obviously only at a certain point, I understand that. But I mean, if it just feels like juggling at that point, trying to make sure this guy gets that many hooks and this guy gets that. Is this like, we're not in esports, as I mentioned earlier, right? You get more points and you get more, you're being rewarded for having unique hooks when you're in esports. This is normal Dead by Daylight. I'm trying to have fun. I'm not trying to see, okay, this guy has so many hooks, this guy has that many hooks. Now I need to take this guy and take this chase. I'm not trying to do that, bro. I'm just trying to hold my W key and walk forward and try to get this guy and get that guy. I'm not trying to play this so I win the DBD league or whatever. And it feels like that's what they're trying to do right now. It feels like that's what the end goal of all of this is. It's just making you sweat more inside normal games just so you can have a chance at winning, right? And that's just, for me, that's just illogical. It just, why would you do that as a company trying to make the game more sweaty? Obviously, once again, I might be interpreting this wrong, but that's for me how it could end. And I don't want that, quite honestly. I don't want to sweat more just so I can, have the same chance as winning as I have now, right? I have to put in more energy into each game, so that I can have the same chance of winning a game as I have, with playing a killer or whatever game now. And that's just, just makes me question reality at this point. Um, if the survivor that was last hooked is sacrificed or killed, generators cannot be regressed or blocked. And this in so many ways confuses me. My first hypothesis is that this means if the survivor that was last hooked is sacrificed or killed, generators cannot be regressed or killed, which means the guy that was hooked, if he dies on the hook or whatever, if he dies on the hook, like as in the timer runs out and he dies on the hook, generators cannot be regressed or blocked, which then I would understand, right? It's a kind of evening out the playing field. And they're supposed to be encouraged to then, try and save that survivor. My next hypothesis is that this means that the survivor that was hooked, like literally if you kill somebody, generators cannot be regressed or blocked. Which, for the love of God, I beg you, behavior, do not make this the mechanic that I'm thinking. Do not make it so that if you hook a survivor and they die from that hook, or if you mori them or whatever, you can't block or regress generators. I'm genuinely deinstalling this game and never ever playing it again if that's the actual thing, and if that's the actual choice that they make in the end. For the love of God, do not do that. Now my third, and I think this is the best hypothesis, I think they mean, what they're trying to say here is that the survivor that was hooked before the one that you just hooked is killed, right? If you hook somebody, and then you hook them again, right? Then generators cannot be regressed or blocked, which in this case actually makes sense, right? Because that means you get punished if you tunnel, right? Let's say there's a Nancy, right? She's 2 hooks, and I hook her again, right? And then she gets hooked from me consecutively hooking her. If I hook the Meg, right, and then I hook the Nancy, and then I hook the Meg, right, and then instead of going for Nancy again, I hook the Meg. Then I get punished for being with generators not being regressed or blocked. I would understand that. That's honestly, if this was the only change they made against tunneling, I would think that's great, right? Because it makes you, it's just that slight edge that's supposed to tell you, hey man, don't tunnel, you can't regress or block generators. So they have constant access to it. And so you need to bring perks, you maybe need to combat that or whatever. And you're not going to be able to do that, right? That's, I hope that my third hypothesis is true and my second isn't, because if my second is, I am done with this game. That is inevitable. Yeah, that is mostly it. The last thing is that survivor and killer perks get updated. From the patch notes, it's obviously hard to say since you don't know which one. Hopefully, it's perks that are anti-tunnel, which get nerfed a bit since they now have a base kit anti-tunneling thing, and perks that motivate you to not tunnel, like Grim Embrace or whatever, or what's the word? Dying Light, or Save the Best for Last, or whatever, right? That those are being buffed in a certain way so that you're less being punched to try and hold on, let me get a sip. So that you're less punched to try and get a tunnel or whatever. I just hope that this is the way, and that they don't do anything stupid along the way. Thank you for listening to my almost 30-minute long rant. I hope you have a great day, and let's see what this update brings to us.